2 weeks ago, we had our property group meetup in the Gold Coast. 400 of you came. Thank you so much. Here's the recording. We go through state by state, city by city around Australia, and I give you my thoughts on each location. And here's a quick tip. There are two locations, especially in Victoria and New South Wales, that I talk about that I've not talked about before, that clients are starting to buy in. And so if you watch this session, you might be at the bottom of the cycle, right at the right timing in terms of capitalizing on these locations for your next investment property. In the session, we also did Q&A. We heard from some of our community members, including clients, about their property investment journeys. There was nothing to sell, that you couldn't even buy my course because this was not one of those dodgy, scammy seminars. It was a genuine group meetup, amazing community vibe where everyone was learning from everyone else. If you missed it, watch it now or listen to it right here. Be inspired, learn, grow, and succeed. Thank you for being part of the community, even if you weren't able to make it. If you want me to come to your city or town, leave a comment below where you live, wherever that may be, and wherever I get the most comments, I'll endeavor to come and do a free group meetup there as well. Leave your city or town in the comments, and thank you so much once again. Welcome to the Oz Property Investment Mastery Podcast. My name's PK, and I help busy people build passive income by buying top 5% growth and cash flow property and build a portfolio using data without wasting months doing research, spending weekends at inspection or catching flights, or dropping $10,000 to $20,000 on buyer's agents every single time. So if you're confused, lack confidence, and just overwhelmed with all the information and marketing misinformation available online and don't know where to start, then this show is for you. I just want to take a quick poll, all right? And then we'll go into what those discussions and what the feedback was. I just want you to raise your hand for a quick moment let's start. If you've invested interstate before, please raise your hand nice and high. All right, so I said like 15%. Please, put your hand up. Please raise your hand so that you give me if you're a client of mine. There's not enough hands up in the air. But that's fine, we'll get there. Please raise your hand. Please raise your hand, as this will be interesting, if you have one investment property. Please keep your hand up if you have 2 investment properties. Please keep your hand up if you have 3 investment properties. Please keep your hand up if you have 4 investment properties. You guys are showing off. Please keep 5 investment properties. Talk about vanity, right? Keep your hands up if you had 6 investment properties. And these are the people to blame for Australia's housing. Terrible, that. Oh, forget my humor, I'm joking. Nothing. Okay, so does anyone want to volunteer what their why was, what their challenge was, and what their partner's solution to that challenge was? Please put your hand up if you'd like to volunteer, and I'm just going to ask you to speak. It's a pretty simple thing. Anyone want to volunteer before I start picking people? Work with people, no abort. All right, that'd be good. I'm gonna get you to like. So what was your why? What is your challenge? And what the solution to that challenge was from your partner?
Hi everyone. My name's Ewan. My why was probably just to break the cycle of not being able to, not to be able, but not being able to break the cycle of poverty that we grew up in. Sort of coming from a third world country, coming into Australia, there was no expectation of us really achieving anything other than work hard, try to survive. And I thought that maybe with property I could break that cycle, because no one in our family line or generation had ever done that before. So I thought I would try to do something a little bit different. That's my why. Obviously, there's many whys, but that's the one that I surely resonate with.
What was the challenge?
The challenge at the moment is borrowing capacity or serviceability. We've hit a wall. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because it's just making me think of other ways of actually getting over that hurdle. We didn't really get too much further than that because we couldn't find a partner to conversate with until Trinity copped it. Everyone turned around. So, so we didn't get to an answer on how we can actually achieve that as yet. But sorry, what was your name, Tal? Trudy. Trudy had a good one. She's hit a roadblock at the moment is the market's hot. Supply is very low, and getting into contact with property agents is a challenging platform. The only advice I could probably give you is keep at it or keep going. We not the best model, but we bought one just recently and we got knocked back out 20 times before we landed one. And my brother-in-law Josh, we did the same for him. We got knocked about 10 to 12 properties before we landed one. So you just got to keep calling the agents, just got to keep at it. Even ones where properties got under offer, but for some reason it fell through, probably finance sudden, and we were able to snag it up. So just keep at it, guys. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, inspired already. A quick tip, not that anyone can give these tips, but in terms of borrowing capacity, it's possible to see if you had even any conserved or preserved, like let's say 400k borrowing capacity preserved, you can start buying in trust. Now, of course, everyone's different. You need to talk to your broker, because if you start buying in trust, that potentially there's a way to keep that 400k preserved for subsequent properties. Otherwise, if you have hit a wall, no borrowing capacity left, then it may be the only idea to sell that into a trust or sell it entirely if it was bought ages ago and it's a dud. But there's no perfect solutions, and of course, everyone's different. And in terms of hot market, I can't. There's so many different tactics and strategies by which we can be successful in a hot market, but I feel you, like it is a hot market and we're all struggling. It's the flushest that I've ever seen because there's hardly anything for sale, and it's a record low amount of listings basically ever in Australia. And so I think those who persevere, who don't FOMO, but for those who persevere and really do, make it their mission to buy X amount of properties and whatever their goal or strategy is, they'll be handsomely rewarded in the future. So please persevere. Don't take it personally when a real estate agent doesn't treat you nicely, or don't take it personally when you get rejected. Like a great example is there's always enough properties for everyone. You just have to, it's just harder than 10 years ago. That's the case. But that was fantastic. I want to ask anyone else. Anyone else want to volunteer? I'm going to have two more people. Okay, yes? What's your name?
I'm here.
So the question is, what was your why, what was your challenge, and what was the solution to that challenge from your part?
Thanks, being late for this opportunity, and for me, the person as well. Me and my wife consider him as our master. Thanks for that. So on behalf of my wife as well, express my gratitude. So for your information, we are on Norway in Seawater Resort. Yesterday, I checked Facebook, saw the post. We're from Melbourne, actually. And then we saw the post in Gold Coast area, and be there. So So yeah, for the why, I guess most of people here want to have passive income via properties, but I guess the challenge is how, and I think you can alleviate the challenge by pay for PK's course. Maybe after this you pay big commission. I didn't pay. So sorry. No, I'm joking. But we bought house and land packages 2 times in the last 7 years, but we felt stuck with that. So luckily we decided to sell that, and then I found PK on YouTube, and I enrolled in his course 5 months ago. And during those 5 months, I bought 2 investment properties, interstate, in hot market Townsville. And one thing I could share is I beat him on record. He failed 20 times on market offers. I failed, I think, over 30 times. Or no, 50. He's a person. But that's what I mean. I guess you don't give up. I literally failed a lot in the month. But then the deal that came was actually off market, the magic word. Probably because I threw my information through 40, 50 agents, and one of them actually came back with one off-market deal. The second deal, I kept failing against the home market, so I steered to a cooler suburb in South Australia, and then, yeah, the offer got accepted. And this will attest to your knowledge as well. I tried to hunt for a bargain deal. And the second deal was actually the bank valuation came back it's still not approved, finance approved yet, but the bank valuation has come back higher than my contract price, which is very rare. So now I'm able to order more than I do same with the AMI if I is on a higher valuation. So I guess my advice is don't give up, enroll his course, it is worth, because I know it sticks to you for your life. And yeah, keep failing, then you will succeed one day. Thank you.
Let's start with going around Australia and my humble thoughts on different markets. Is that okay with everyone? Deb, can I get a yes out loud? Yeah. Right, so let's start with Melbourne. Who thinks it's the right time to buy a Melbourne right now? So this is really interesting because I genuinely think it is. And see how contrarian that is, all right? So as of this month, I think that there are some good opportunities. My clients will kill me because I'm talking it too much about the stuff that they want. But on the north side of Melbourne, I'm not going to give you those, but on the north side of Melbourne, you can figure it out. There's, let's say middle ring, so not like in Woodward, but in middle ring Melbourne, there's starting to become a strength of data in a series of 6 to 7 suburbs, all right? Now, of course, as time goes on, that cluster gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Just like when we started investing in Perth in 2021, there was maybe a handful of suburbs, and then the wave or the tidal wave came and more suburbs came into that mix. So buying in Melbourne right now is definitely more high risk than buying in Perth or Townsville or Mackay or Gold Coast or Brisbane. But it could pay off for those who have higher risk thresholds and want to be a little bit early, right, and not have that competition. So I think that's very important to note. Of course, the state economy, the state budget is very weak in Victoria. They've reduced their land tax thresholds, which means that any property there basically negatively geared, all right? So that's the reality. I don't want to you talked about positive cash flow. I'm just spitting the truth, okay? Everything is basically negatively geared. But for those of you who can afford $5,000 a year in the hole every year, then that is a good opportunity. And remember, rates go up according to the market levels. Interest rates oscillate up and down, and so over the long term becomes positive cash flow. But you have to take everything that I'm saying and apply it to your individual circumstances. But Melbourne has been in the doldrums for a long time. Of course, a lot of suburbs have gone out a lot because of the COVID boom. What hasn't? But because of what happened around the lockdowns, etc. in Melbourne, Victoria in general has a lot of potential, but it could be a start-stop type of thing. So don't say PK mentioned, it's North Melbourne and I did make 100K in 6 months, okay? Because I don't think you will. This is very, very early bird, but it's exciting because it's the first time we've invested in Melbourne for over 3 or 4 years. So I think that's worth sharing. If we come down to sort of Adelaide now, Adelaide has had, so up to about 2018, Adelaide had about 10 years of almost nothing. And contrary to popular belief, past growth does not mirror future growth. In fact, if you look at 10 versus 10-year historical performance of property markets, what has underperformed in the past tends to overperform in the next 10 years. And so you take a place like Bunbury, for example, in Perth. Is anyone, put your hand up if you're thinking about Bunbury or that's on your radar in terms of investing in real estate? I don't have anyone. This range is like impossible to buy there. It's so hot, right? But I was living there anyway. That has been basically the worst performing location almost nationally in the last 10, 15 years. But that's completely shifted now, and it has so much catching up to do. There's a concept called reversion to the mean, and that is what Bunbury is experiencing, and that is definitely what Adelaide experienced since 2019. It's at a huge run. I don't think it will continue to go up as much going forward. Property markets are like ships. Once they get going, like the Titanic, it's very hard to avoid the iceberg, right? You can't just put a brake on it. But Adelaide is definitely, I don't want to say heading towards an iceberg because I don't think there's a big bubble or crash, but it's starting to show signs that it needs to slow down. And of course, the biggest enemy to any growth is price increase itself, because that is the handbrake of affordability. Does that make sense? I want you to connect with these points. So that's my thoughts on Adelaide. Look, I think there's another maybe 6 to 12 to 18 months of really solid growth there, but it's probably going to peter out, and you may be buying right now at the 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. in the property clock. If we, contrary to that, a place like Port Lincoln or a place like Mount Gambier in regional South Australia still offers some great opportunity. It had grown a lot and sort of had a little bit of correction, and now the buying window is pretty prime, okay? But of course, and I think I should say this, you probably already know, there's suburbs within suburbs. Just because I'm talking about Melbourne, or just when I'm talking about Adelaide, just when I'm talking about Mount Gambier, what I'm saying is not applied or applicable to every single suburb of those locations. And that's really the bread and butter of property investing. Everyone thinks, is it the right time to buy it? Put your hand up if you've ever thought, is this the right time to buy property nationally? Put your hand up if that's gone through. I know you guys think it, because those are the videos on YouTube that go the most viral, so I know that it's a very topical and fluent discussion and thought bubble. But really the answer is it's always a good time to buy, and of course people like me will say that, right? So come on, sit there trying to sell something, come on, but be fair. But honestly it is, but it depends on where. There's never been a time, including the GFC, where there wasn't at least some suburbs growing in value, all right? So markets for the markets, and I think you should take everything with that I'm saying with or through that lens. Now if we go to Perth, okay, who is interested in buying a property in Perth? Quite a lot of people, So Perth, the often discussion is, has Perth gone up so much? Have I missed the boat? Is it sort of a bubble now? Is it all predominated by East Coast greedy investors, and those are the people propping up prices? Hey, you probably get this question all the time. The answer is statistically, no. Statistically, what's driving the Perth property market is a whole host of interstate migration and international migration, mostly from the UK, from India, from New Zealand, other places as well. And that is really meaning owner-occupiers are fighting tooth and nail for every single property. Yes, there's lots of investors there now as well, but those aren't the ones, generally speaking, making that price war happen. Of course, there's always exceptions in different suburbs. But Perth, I don't think it's at the top. If you look at the number of houses for sale, it's like 25% of what it was 2 or 3 years ago. And if you look at the demand, someone asked me to talk about data. One of the most important data factors that, if you want to write it down or take it home today, is simply a statistic called days on market. You don't have to pay for this. You can get it from different websites for free. Days on market is effectively how quickly is a property selling from the time it's listed to when contracts are exchanged, days on market. Logical neg. And if you see days on market in Perth, it's continuously trending down, and right now it's about 8 days. All right, that means that the average property, including all the rubbish suburbs, it takes just 8 days to sell a property. Now, I'm not here to spruik Perth. I don't gain anything if you buy in Perth, or don't gain, or not buy in Perth, right? But these are just the statistics. So I'm still very bullish on Perth. I think a lot of the low-hanging fruit has already been pegged. It's basically impossible to buy anything freestanding under 500 or 550, maybe even 600K. But for those of you who really do want to buy Perth, I think if you buy a suburb that hasn't grown more than 40-50%, you'll still do incredibly well. Now, of course, I'm just very superficially going through these sort of round Australia, and we'll take some Q&A at the end as well. If we go to Darwin, Darwin's economy is largely predominated by a transient workforce, by LNG projects. When they expand and production increases, that's when a lot of people from Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, internationally, they move to Darwin. That creates a swell of demand, and property prices can go up 50%, like literally in a year or two. But that's not happening in Darwin right now because there is no fundamental strength in this resources sector, or it's not increasing, is what I'm trying to say. And so what that means is that, yes, Darwin is cheap. A lot of people ask me, well, if Darwin is like, everything else is boom during this COVID, post-COVID time, Darwin's the only one that has a boom. Surely, you just talked about it, reversion to the mean. It has to catch up with these other capital cities. Yes, it will catch up. It will go back to the historical price disparity between the Gold Coast, Darwin, Brisbane, Darwin, Melbourne, Darwin, Sydney, Darwin. But that price disparity will only converge when there is enough stimulus for prices to start rising. Just like Brisbane. After the Sydney-Melbourne boom in 2014 to 17 or 16, Brisbane was so cheap. And a lot of people, maybe not us because we're in the Gold Coast, a lot of people from Sydney and Melbourne, they rushed into buying in Brisbane only to see their houses flat for the next 4 or 5 years. It was only post-COVID that Brisbane boomed. And so that's a really good case and example of just because it's cheap and affordable, that doesn't mean it will boom. So Darwin had to be very careful in that respect. Some people mentioned about buying in Townsville and Mackay and other places. In terms of regional Queensland, there's a lot of potential in Townsville, a lot of potential in places like Mackay, like Bundaberg. Bundaberg's grown a lot now, but hardly anything's not gone up in 60 or 70%. Townsville, has a bad stigma. Back in 2015, 16, it's almost like you expected to be like mugged if you went up to Townsville. The unemployment rate was like huge. I think 9% crime rate was huge. The economy was in the doldrums. It had this kind of mining town sort of stigma as well, which it was trying to shed. But really, in the last 5 years, the council there has created a new city plan. The unemployment rate is under 3%, which is better than the national average. And let me give you some context here, right? Regional towns are never better than the national average, all right? That this is, and that's why Townsville is so strong, so strong. This is a kind of a very immature thing for me to say, but if there's one town where you could put a blindfold on and make money, it's Townsville. I don't do that. That's bad advice. But I'm just trying to highlight just how strong it is, okay? And similar things can be said for Rockhampton, for Bundaberg, for places like Toowoomba. Gladstone's economy is not quite as diverse as some of these other areas that I've mentioned, but just because at the economy, it has improved, but it's not as diverse in its employment drivers. Because of the improvement, it is going up in value as well. So you guys probably hear me on YouTube and other places talking about regional Queensland. So these are the areas that my clients have been very active, and I'm sure a lot of you that aren't my clients have been very active. You know, those of you who are just kicking goals, basically. So good on you. Brisbane's very interesting. You know, it feels like, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like it grew by 50% in 2021. Like, it just shot up. Like I mentioned, it was so affordable, it had a lot catching up to, and it feels like it did that basically in 1 year. And then in 2022, as interest rates started rising, it was Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, the ones that retraced some of their gains. Not all of their gains, some of their gains. And this is the other thing, as a tangent, and I hope I'm not boring you, but I like to go on these tangents. There is no such thing as a property crash, right? Everyone wants to know when, oh my God, should I buy now? Is there a property crash coming? What if I time it really terribly? Markets are going to go down 20, 30, 50%. It's like that. In Australia, that doesn't happen. Now, never say never. Like, I don't want to get sucked into that foolhardy type of immature thinking. But what I'm trying to say is that markets boom, they correct. There's always a correction. It's not like markets go up in a linear or exponential fashion perpetually. That doesn't happen either. And after they correct, there's a period of plateau, all right? And then they start going up again. So that's kind of where Brisbane is. It's definitely going up. It experienced that correction after a huge boom period in 2021, and for the next 1 or 2 years, 2 or 3 years, it's likely to do incredibly well. I don't buy into that Olympic Games story, by the way, and I'm very contrarian in that respect. People, you know, property spruikers, people like me like to take any type of news bite and make it into a headline and say that's why you should buy there. But the reality is that the Olympic Games aren't bringing or isn't bringing any material new infrastructure to Brisbane, and generally speaking, the Olympic Games has no correlation to capital growth. For example, Sydney in 2000, brilliant Olympic Games, it's probably my favorite Olympic Games ever, but leading up to the Olympic Games, Melbourne outperformed Sydney in terms of the house crisis. So go figure. Don't buy Brisbane just because of the Olympic Games. Look to the underlying fundamentals, so less about data. And then I think we've done all of Australia. Oh, Sydney, Gold Coast, notwithstanding. So Gold Coast. Who thinks Gold Coast is going to go up for the next 12 months? Put your hand up. All right, put your hand up if you think Gold Coast is like really extensive now and super unaffordable and it's going to start tanking soon. All right, yeah, please back yourself if you do think that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Hey, that was nice. Thank you. So the Gold Coast is very, very interesting. You know, people attributed a lot of regional towns booming during COVID, post-COVID, to this whole work from home environment and concept. And of course, employers are bringing their employees back into the office. That's a real thing that's going on. But employees as well, we're a little bit like, no, we don't really want to go back. So it's kind of like in the middle ground right now. But Gold Coast is different to other regional locations because you guys know this more than I do. There's still fundamentally thousands of people from Melbourne and Sydney moving right here. Yeah, you know, this is a reality. You're probably seeing your friends or colleagues or acquaintances coming over and have made new friends from down south. That is not slowed down. And so if there's one thing I want to say about the Gold Coast is that if you look at long-term demographic trends, the single place in Australia which is likely to have the highest relative population growth, not absolute, the relative population growth. And remember, housing markets work on relativity. You can throw a stone into the ocean and then it's insignificant, but if you throw a stone into a bathtub, it actually makes a difference. So it's relativity that's important. By having all of this new population come into Gold Coast, the single largest relative population growth outlook till 2040, that is enough premise for me to say that the Gold Coast will be the best performing housing market over the next, 2024 right now? So over the next 16 years. So if you have your own property, please jump and sell it.
You know, it's a good place. The Gold Coast real estate is like gold. You know, you've got the ocean, you've got the mountains. You can't build out anywhere down south, down to Tweed, Byron. It gets more and more expensive. Up north, Palmer, Coomera, Ormeau, all these places are all basically fully built out now. So we're really landlocked, ocean-locked, great place to be. And then lastly, to finish off with Sydney. So Sydney is one that I'm just going to be honest. And I think I try to live by this principle that growth happens when you're the most humble person in the room. All right, and of course, when you think you're the most humble person in the room, yes, contrarily, it means that you're not humble at all, right? I understand the irony of it. But I just want to be honest and say, I don't know what Sydney's going to do. It's super unaffordable, right? I mean, it takes on average 55% of the person's household income to afford mortgage repayments. Rent is basically the same in terms of unaffordability. Yet, Sydney's still growing, even with these, relatively speaking, higher interest rates. So I don't know why it's still growing, and my hypothesis, if you can bear with me, is because, and this is a really, hopefully it's a complex concept, but hopefully I'll try to simplify it down. You see, you've got a bell curve, like a normal distribution curve. Like if I had a piece of paper, I'd do like a half or semicircle. And in normal times, you know, in terms of income and wealth, you had most of the people in the middle, a few people who are rich, and a few people who are lower socioeconomic. All right? Are you with me so far? Yeah. All right. My hypothesis, and this is backed up by a bunch of demographers that I've been speaking with, is that, and this is not a good thing, by the way, Australia's distribution of wealth is now skewing to the right and to the left. So those who have assets have experienced asset inflation, and they've become more and more wealthy. Those who don't have assets, and by assets I mean largely real estate, are in a big way priced out of the market, especially in Sydney. So that left-hand side, the lower socioeconomic side of the spectrum is starting to beef up, and the middle class is being evacuated. And this is what happens in every postmodern sort of Western democracy. At some point, we're catching up to what the sort of dynamic is in, let's say, the UK. We're catching up as Australians to what the dynamic is in the US, with inequality getting bigger as bigger. And so coming back to Sydney, my hypothesis is that there's so many people now that are, of course, on the left, but also on the right. Australia has the highest amount of millionaire immigration into the country, even compared to places like Singapore and Dubai, UAE, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many, people on that right-hand side, those who are well off, that in Sydney, the property market is no longer dictated by the average person. And that's a terrible thing, because I think as much as we're property investors and we have our whys and we're trying to get ahead through this asset class, I genuinely think we should always have Australia as a priority in terms of social issues, in terms of just being a good person and having ethics. And, we can't change this individually, but this is what it is. All right? So in the future, this evaporation of the middle class was likely to exaggerate and exacerbate, and we have a choice for ourselves which side of that equation we want to be on. And that's kind of like a difficult thing to say in public, especially if you know my background and my thoughts on negative gearing, which somewhat contrastingly, I'm actually not a huge fan of negative gearing. So it is, for me to say these comments are not whimsical. All right? I genuinely believe this is bad for Australia, but that's the reality of the Sydney housing market, and that's why it's bucking the trend despite interest rates going up, affordability at all-time lows. So I'm going to go through Q&A at the end, but I hopefully that gave you a bit of the around the ground, and I want to say that this wasn't like my opinion. Like, my opinion is worthless. It's no better than someone else's opinion. There's 27 million property experts in Australia, but this is what the data is suggesting, and I'm just trying to basically be a mic for that. All right, so thank you for your rapt attention. I appreciate it. Good only for cutting, but go for it. All right, so what we're going to do now is, do you guys want to talk to each other again? Should we do another breakout session or should we carry on? Breakout session? Carry on? Don't want to commit? That was supposed to be serious. All right, let's carry on. So what I want to do now is I want to invite my very good friend and tennis partner, Andrew Shihata, up here. He's actually a client of mine, but he's not going to talk about the course, and I've already briefed him not to do that. But the reason I'm inviting him on is because we played tennis today and I kicked his ass. And so, no, of course. We're going to talk about his fears of why not to invest in property when he first started. Because I know a lot of you out there will be very new to property and you'll be like honestly, there's so many things that, what if this goes wrong, what if that goes wrong? PK, you always paint a rosy picture, everyone paints a rosy picture, but what about these worst case scenarios, etc.? So Andrew's going to share, and he's just going to share from his heart because he's very successful. He's bought multiple properties now. He lives in Sydney. He's come all the way to this event from Sydney on a very cheap Jetstar flight. It's good. $60 from Sydney to that's pretty decent. So yeah, without further ado, please give a big round of applause.
Wow, what an intro. Thanks, BK. So my name is Andrew. I am a client, also part of PK's team as well, so I help out doing various things. And yeah, it's a great opportunity to be here today just to, I think, give you a bit of my experience when it comes down to property investing, how I started, and I guess how I felt during certain periods of buying property. And there are a couple of key things I want to talk about today, mainly more about like the fears that I had when I started. And I think many of the fears that you might have, especially as newcomers and new starters here today. And one of the stats that PK kind of brought up today, just by looking at the room, was roughly 10 to 15% of people here have bought interstate. So that means around 85% of us haven't. And so imagine this. Imagine you buy a property interstate, sight unseen, you haven't inspected it, you haven't set foot on it, you don't know what the neighborhood is like, who your neighbors are, and you settle on that property. Isn't that daunting? It's kind of scary. So that was my sort of thoughts when I started, let alone being able to buy next to you locally in the suburb, and then buying interstate. It's kind of scary. So I think what I want to do is talk a bit about that. Like, my experiences started, I would say, back in 2020, around the COVID era, when that era was 4 years ago. But I'm from Sydney. I'm based in the northwest, Castle Hill. I remember being stuck in my room in Castle Hill, not being able to drive more than 5Ks, like a 5K radius from my home. Yet I was looking at purchasing property in South Australia. So the idea is I can't leave my house more than 5Ks, but yeah, I'm buying property 1,000 Ks away from where I live. And for me, that just signaled something. That was my aha moment. I was like, wow, I can buy a property interstate, and this is pretty powerful. And I think the two key things to me that I've learned is, firstly, due diligence. That is the most important thing. So you want to make sure that you understand your suburbs. You know what suburb you're looking into, why it's a good suburb, and you need to have conviction that it is a good suburb before getting into it, and same thing with the property you look into as well. So you want to do your due diligence as well when it comes down to assessing the right properties. And the second point is you need to have the right team around you. So, for example, you all heard PK say, we want a high-performing property manager amongst other team members as well. And I think it's quite instrumental, in building out your portfolio, in having that confidence, and ensuring that you have people on your side that understand what you're trying to achieve as investors. And that was the key thing for me that allowed me to kind of look interstate, is having a right team around. And so I think a lot of you resonate with that. It's just because you haven't bought interstate, and it's kind of scary, but there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So the second point is mainly around, the current weight of the economy, right? So everywhere you look, news, the news, media outlets, it's all doom and gloom. It's all, inflation is high, the cost of living is high, entering recession, or maybe not really, but like it's kind of scary stuff, right? So imagine you're ready to invest. You've got your savings, you have your equity locked in, ready to go. But interest rates are sky high, right? 6 to 7%, or 8%, whatever the case is. It's kind of scary, right? Like, what happens if you can't make your mortgage repayments? Echo. You're putting, or say the tenants leave the property, all your money is being drained away. And I think maybe the best analogy that I could think of was it's like kind of like walking on a tightrope over a canyon, I guess just waiting to misstep into financial ruin. But probably not that bad, but like it's bad enough, and it's kind of scary. So for me, the way that I see it is like interest rates are kind of like a tide in a way, so they kind of ebb and flow. And BK did mention this a bit earlier on, and like I'm paying 6 to 7% interest rate across my portfolio, but like I'm okay. And the reason why is because, as PK did mention, I think earlier on, like rents will rise if you're in the right market, in the right suburb, you're in the right pocket. They're going to go up maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in a given year or so. That'll take us from neutral, put us back into positive cash flow territory, and I think that's going to start to feel a bit more comfortable. And so these would be my 2 points that I think are quite pertinent as a new investor and something that I kind of had to learn. And yeah, hope you guys got some value from that. But came to chat at the end of the meet up, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I suppose like if you're a new investor, you're on the Gold Coast, for you maybe property investing is like, what's that street on Surfers where they had those shops and they had those like little model skyscrapers and they're trying to sell you off the flat. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those off the flat apartments? Maybe property investing is that for you, and you're like, I should just buy an apartment in Surfers or like Broadbeach or something. And that's really like not high performance property investing. And there's other ways to do it. And generally speaking, statistically, it's very unlikely that the best place to invest of all the 15,000 suburbs in Australia is the suburb where you live or that suburb that you heard other people buy in your city or town. So this is a really good example that you shared about buying interstate and how to overcome that fear. And the next speaker that I want to humbly invite up is Hayley Seal. And she's actually a property manager from all the way in Bunbury, but she covers all of the sort of Perth region. And she's come with about all the way from Perth, which is pretty cool. And she's going to take us through, at a high level, just over 5 minutes or so, how you can actually, sitting here in the Gold Coast, buy a high-performance property. It doesn't have to be Perth, right? Just anywhere, interstate, remotely, wherever, but with full confidence that, even though I have not seen it, even though I've not smelt it, even though I have not had a coffee at the local cafe or bought bread from the local bakery, that I know this suburb and I know this property and it's in the right suburb and it's the right property, right street, all set of due diligence done, all right, for free, all right? So this is what property managers do generally, but Hayley is one of the best of the best. So please give her a big round of applause.
Hello, I'm nervous, so if I start, cut on me after and I'll explain it again. I've come in for Perth to sort of give you an idea of how it works, investing in property, sort of without a buyer's agent, and PK's course immediately teaches you guys. When it comes to property management, we look for everything, so we can tell you if it's a good suburb, where the housing condition is, and what the potential rent is, even before going and seeing it. Once you have found a property and we've done that for you and you're ready to go and have a look at it, but you're over here and we're over there, we go through, do a complete video walkthrough for you, and then take photos of any payments, anything else that needs to be fixed prior to renting the property out. That way you have a full understanding. If you're ready to go and you want to jump in, you know what you're looking for and you know what you have ahead of you after settle it. Once you have an offer accepted, we stay with you through that process, and once a property does end up settling, we go and do the final sales inspection for you, so you don't have to worry about anything. You don't need to get on a plane to fly over because we're doing everything for you. Then I don't manage them personally myself, but some property managers do. So with that, the property will come on to a red role and we'll manage it there from there. So that's the rundown, that side of things. I'm sorry. When it comes to looking for properties and looking for what's for sale in areas, we can also send lists. We have lists ready to go of what's for sale every day. My assistant will get a list ready to go for contextual clients and send that off. That's a new thing we've started. Any property manager can do this. Not everyone does it for free. We do it free of charge because it's what I'm passionate about, what I like doing. So I would never charge for it, and some agencies do. The best thing to do with know where you're looking, an area that you want to look in, call the best property managers just from Google, have a chat to multiple, find one that you connect with. Not everyone's going to connect with me, so they're going to go to the next one, and that's absolutely fine. Once you've found your property manager that you know that you can trust and you put that effort into making that relationship, it's going to make things better for you guys in the long run, and they're going to put more effort into you and your search as well. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Hayley. And I can't stress enough. Of all the people that are in your dream team, like for a property investor, like mortgage broker, property manager, who else is there? Conveyancer, building investment inspector, quantity surveyor, etc. I might be biased, but I genuinely think the property manager is the most important. They're all important, all right? But the property manager is the most important because they're one of the few that have no skin in the game. Like when you're sending a property to a person like Hayley and you're asking her to inspect it for you and you don't know her, you're like, half a world away if it's in Perth, right? She doesn't get anything out of like telling you a lie that yeah, it's good. Like she's not making any money, right? Or if she does tell you a lie, as in this example, if she's fibbing and she's like covering up some maintenance issues and actually it's not got the drainage problem and this and that, then in the tenure of her managing that property for you, which is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, that lie is going to come out, and it's not just going to bite you, but it's going to bite her, because she'll have the problematic tenant, she'll have the problematic property, she'll have extra maintenance that she will need to organize. So see how, there's a saying, I want to claim credit for it, someone said it much smarter than me, but they said to find where the money is, you have to follow the incentive structure. And anyone who's incentivized to sell you a property, take them with a grain of salt, but anyone who has a long 10-year relationship with the property and has no incentive to sell it to you for a quick buck, that is someone you have to have on your team, and that is how you can buy interstate with confidence and calm and all those C words, like with cool, calm, and collected, all that sort of stuff. So that's very, very important, and I think people like Hayley and property managers, they're underutilized. They've got real estate licenses, but they're not a real estate agent. They're not selling you anything. And I just really encourage everyone to find good property managers and expand your horizons beyond just the Gold Coast for high-performance property investing, especially diversification, as your portfolio gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So thank you very much, Hayley, once again. The last guest that I want to introduce is one that I was excited about all of them, but I'm very, very excited about. Her name is Tao Bui, and she's come all the way with her family, lovely family from Melbourne. She's actually brought her daughter as well, Nikki. Hi, Nikki, sorry to embarrass you, who's on the iPad up here. She's just 10 years old. But I just thought it was so good. She is a client of mine, but once again, she's not talking about the calls or trying to sell it. That's not my vibe here. But she's transacted 9 properties, and she's just like, she sends me properties, and I'm like, I don't think this is going to work, and she makes it work, and she just You know, there are some people who just take life by the scruff of the collar and just make stuff happen. And so she's someone like that. So she was coming up to this event just as a attendee or a guest, and I said, like, you can't go all the way from Melbourne, why don't you speak? And she's not used to public speaking, and so she's very, very nervous right now. And so I just want you to make her feel really welcome. She's going to share her experience and give her tips and tricks, especially in renovating. But please make her feel less nervous with a big round of applause.
Thank you, really appreciate. So I'm really nervous, and I never imagined myself speaking in front of so many people here. So allow me if I need to look at my notes, because I forget whatever I'm going to say next. So first of all, I want to say thank you, for the opportunity today. It's really, really challenging to speak in front of so many people here. I was terrified when he asked me to speak, and I still said yes. Yes, PK, I'm coming, but I don't know what I'm gonna say. And as you can see, I'm really nervous and my hand's shaking. But yes, I'm coming, and I'm gonna take my family. I'm gonna challenge myself because I want to grow. I want everybody to know me. Came from Vietnam when I was 17. I don't know how to speak English. I came to study and start my new life here. As you know, it's really hard for 17 years old and from a foreign country to come to Australia and start. So after finishing school, I worked in an office job for about 10 years. And after that, I found it really boring. I need some change, so I decided to run my own business. So I got a test, test a lot of news agents. I'm not sure if anyone here run a news agent before. It was harder than I thought. It's long hours, very stressful, running a small business. And I thought this is not for me because a lot of hours meant I couldn't spend my time with my family. This is not for me. I needed to change again, so another career challenge. I found PK when I was COVID, and then I didn't know what to do. So I found PK on YouTube, and I started his course. Since then, I got 3 properties, and I never stopped. I'm like, how can I keep learning? How can I keep buying properties? I don't have enough deposit, I don't have enough income. This is a challenge that everyone's gonna have. How can I borrow? How can I get money to keep buying properties? So a bit of about my property purchase. I purchased my PPLR in 2006, and after 3 years, the company gone up. So I thought, yeah, this is great. So I start buying my first investment property in 2009, and I sold it after 8 years. And I bought my second investment property in 2012, and I sold it after 6 years. I make a lot of money from these two investments, so I thought I knew everything about property investing. I could repeat it. Yeah, just need to buy another one, and then after 3-4 years, I can buy another one again. However, I make a mistake. As you always hear me say, I bought a house and land package in Western Melbourne. Soon after that, I realized I made a mistake. It was negative year. It's like it didn't grow much. So I thought, how can I do this? I need to learn. I need to find a way to keep buying. I can't buy Northern. The price too high. So after 5PK, I really like PK about his data-driven approach and focus on numbers, not emotions. Concept like supply, demand makes sense to me. So since then, I never stop. Every day I strive to improve my skill, and after maxing out my borrowing capacity on my forward investment, I want to buy more. And I love property investing, and I found my passions here. It resonates with my dreams of flexibility, family time, and financial security. So I learned how to renovate because I thought PK teaches you can renovate to add some value and get some better rent. So I thought I'd offer do this. I sort of look up online, YouTube again, and I found FIR strategy. I'm not sure you know what FIR stands for. Is buy, renovate, refinance, and repay. So that's something I love to do. Normal buy and hold is, I think it's taking too long. I'm got patience, and I really love to keep buying property. I think if you want to accumulate equity or something, you have to wait for at least a year or so. You can draw the equity out and rebuy it again, and you can save up deposit. But this birth strategy helped me buy within 6 months. And I thought, this is crazy, this is so powerful. That's why I kept saying to PK, I want to do this, I think I can do this. I've done one. I've learned how to renovate. I did a proper renovation course, and I actually combined PK strategy and that renovation strategy to apply to birth. I love this. It's actually is more active strategy, not like passive, everyone was saying. It's hard work. There's a lot of headache. And like PK was saying, I don't know how you got to make this work. I don't think you can make it work. I said, yes, I can. So since then, I learned how to flip, buy and hold, to flipping properties is something for me very interesting. It is hard, especially when you try to do interstate. Renovating interstate is hard, but flipping interstate is really hard. I'll tell you, everybody come and ask me, how can you do it? I said, I don't know how, I just did it. Even now, I'm on my second property as a flipping strategy. I still don't do it. I'm just gonna do it. Like my key takeaway for you, this is what I'm applying to myself, is number one, educate yourself. Find someone who has achieved what you want to achieve and learn from them. You don't want to do something that you have no idea you make a loss. Especially on the flipping shorted, like flipping houses. You don't want to buy whatever and they don't make any money after 6 months. Number two, take actions. I love this because this is me. As PK always say, wow, she's going again. I think just take baby step. Baby step towards your goal, and it's every day, is really powerful, I think. My husband always reminding me to show up every day and don't take no for an answer. I think people usually get stuck with challenge like, I can't find property, I can't borrow. But if you keep looking for a way, you will find it. And number three, mindset is key. Work on your mindset, work on your personal growth. This is what I'm actually doing right now because I'm going backwards. I've just done a deal, I've done a quick, now I need to work on my personal growth. And to be honest with you, my journey hasn't been easy. There were challenges and doubts and moments of uncertainty, but through it all, I have really enjoyed it. And it's all about power of belief and discipline. So tonight, I stand before you as a living proof. If I can do it, anyone can. With property, possibility are endless. It's all about unlocking your potential and creating a life of abundance. Thanks for listening today.
An amazing speech. Please give it a big, once again, more than the property journey, I'm just really impressed with your personal growth, and you just came up here and spoke, and you made your daughter really proud. You're great role models. So that's what it's all about. And for me, humbly speaking, it's always great when a student sort of goes beyond what the teacher teaches. And generally, I've not flipped a property in my life, and she's gone and done things that I don't think were possible. And it's actually that's actually a greatest happiness for me when students actually not skip over, she's very humble and very respectful, but they overachieve from what the teacher is teaching. And genuinely, I that's what I want for everyone. So thank you so much once again. All right, guys, let's do Q&A now. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully you learned some mistakes of other people so you can avoid making them, and vice versa. I think, like I said at the start, this session is not about me, it's about you. So hopefully you connected. Please don't be shy after the event as well. You can stay, you can get a coffee or whatever and mingle. It's not like one of those awkward networking events that no one really likes to go to, at least not introverts like me. Everyone is hopefully very friendly here. Please make friends. I always say this at events. One time I went to an event in, I want to say, it was in Brisbane in 2016 or 17, and I met a guy there who presented, but I met him afterwards. And this isn't a leading story, so I'm not going to make you any money, but I met him afterwards, and one thing led to another, and I invested in a deal, and it made me $1 million. That's a true story. So what I'm saying is, don't come to me. Of course, I'd love to meet you all individually, but there will be people in here who are super successful, all right, and they're actually really nice people and want to pass the love on. So please stay at the end and get to know each other. That's what community is all about. But let's do some Q&A for the last, what's the time right now? 1, 20 minutes? All right. So go first time, 30, 35 minutes. Well, yeah. All right, let's do it again. One first question. I'll go through these at a pretty quick clip, so if the questions can be happily swift as well.
So I will sum up my question, Kevin. So I also check like
That's a good idea.
we are talking a lot about Australian market, but like I also check like international markets like Spain or European markets and also US. Like when I check, I realize Australia is not good in terms of like cash flow. And this is also what I would like to ask you. Like, what do you think when you compare international property market? Guys? In Spain, I check in 10, 12 years, it pays off the property. In US, even sometimes 4 or 5 years. In Australia, if you are lucky, 5 years. So, and then I am really wondering why people are still buying in Australia for property. Or, like, this is like really my question, like why don't they go and buy Spain or US, like more cheaper? Like, this is my question. Just for capital grab though.
It's a great way, we should just all vote on it, right? So let me know. That's for Spain. Spain sounds nice, Mallorca or whatever. But honestly speaking, I can't profess to be an expert in all these other locations, but each country has its own economics of property investing. For example, we mentioned the US. US, generally speaking, is, 51 states? There's markets for the markets, but generally speaking, US provides terrific cash flow, all right? So cash flow is like you can get 9% yields, 10% yields, 11% yields, sometimes net. Here it's gross in residential. So why on earth buy here? Why not go there? I mean, the obvious answer to that is foreign exchange or foreign currency risk. That's an obvious one. But the fact remains that in Australia, and of course I'm biased, I love Australia, very grateful to be here, but the statistic is that we've never really had huge beta or huge oscillations in our growth profile. I can't talk about Spain, I don't know it, but the US cash flow is terrific. If you time it right, yes, you could have a 10-year brilliant run, make a lot of passive income, but then the US has big crashes as well. And there's reasons behind that. For example, the liquidity ratios that our banks are required to keep from APRA, the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority, are much more robust. So our banking system has much more bedrock on which to lend and, for banks to lend and receive deposits. And so let's say when the GFC happened, of course, when the US gets a cold, we all sneeze, right? But we didn't even experience a minute iota of weakness or pain that they did over there. None of our banks went under, for example. And so for me, Australian property investing is like lazy, intelligent investing. I mean, there are people like Tal who aren't lazy and very active and make the most of it, but I'm a very lazy person. I like to think I'm lazy, intelligent. We just buy the right assets. They pay for themselves if you buy correctly. And of course, it might not be instantaneous, but within a few years. And then over the long term, of course, there's no such thing as a guarantee. That's only death and taxes. But over the long term, it tends to go up in Australia. We're a big island, but everyone wants to move here because we have a very stable political environment, although being locals, we may not agree, but relative to other countries, we do. We're a very safe nation. We're very lucky in the sense that we have great rocks underneath our ground, and that way we're always prosperous. Let's see how long that lasts. But I'm trying to sound intelligent, but I think that the crux of it is that the capital growth is fairly consistent here, whereas in other countries like the US, it's up and down. And so you need to be much more vigilant, active, and deploy different strategies. Different strokes for different folks. You can make money you can make money in any asset class. I don't know a thing about Bitcoin, but people have made a bunch of money. You can make money anywhere, but for me, Australian real estate is my asset of choice because it's as blue chip an asset as you can get globally anywhere. And that's a fact if you look at the volatility and the standard deviation and risk. Perfectly added justice to that question. Next question. Okay.
You spoke about units lately on your Facebook page was about units. So where do you see them now
meet you to Australia.
You know, for those who, let me put it this way. Experienced property investors seldom buy units. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to any rule, but the fact is that it's really land that appreciates and buildings that depreciate. And so sometimes new property investors are really tempted to buy like that new house with the stone bench top and all the accessories, but it's really overcapitalized. The builder has put too much onto the build, and you're paying 70, 80% of the purchase price for the building as opposed to the land. When we're buying property, we want the land to asset ratio to be at least 60%. What that means is we want to be making sure we're paying predominantly for that piece of dirt, because that dirt is what is scarce. It's the only thing that goes up. When it comes to units, that land to asset ratio is significantly sacrificed. Now, it's very important to be all-rounded and not just toe the party line. Right now, units are rising. And the reason they're rising is generally detached houses go up first, because everyone, if you ask anyone here, they want a detached house first. They're out of the market or priced out, then they want a townhouse, then they want an apartment. Like, that's just human nature, at least for the Australian demographic as it stands today. So generally, when detached houses go up and townhouses catch up, and then units tend to then perform. So we've had a huge boom, COVID boom, everything went up basically. Now units are kicking into gear. We had a glut or oversupply of units in terms of supply, demand, supply as well, dictates price growth. Brisbane, Gold Coast, Melbourne, even Sydney had too many units. They've all been soaked up now. There's not even enough units in Australia, therefore prices are rising. But you will make money in units in the short term, but if you look at the data for the last 30 years, there's been a decoupling or divergence in the capital growth for units. It's kind of like, you're looking at from here, so units are like this and houses are like this. All right, so both are growing, but that deep divergence in growth, the rate of growth is structural insofar as it's not cyclical. So right now, cyclically units are going to rise, but structurally the price difference between detached houses is getting bigger and bigger. And that's why over the long term, I would still prefer, what do you call it, detached houses.
Fair.
Yes.
Jesus. Yeah, just crack.
Thank you. Just building on that last question, like we talked about Sydney earlier, just how expensive it's getting over there. Thinking about like the affordability constraints and sort of getting to a point where even high-income individuals can't really afford like a freestanding house in Sydney. Do you see a case for maybe a boom in the townhouse market or something because of that?
It's a great question. So the question was, even wealthy individuals and wealthy persons in Sydney are now somewhat priced out of detached houses. What about townhouses? Are they going to perform? So I actually did a video just last week on that on YouTube, so go look at that. But the essence of that was select townhouses, those that aren't in huge complexes of 100 townhouses with no scarcity, those that don't have high body corps with like tennis courts and not elevators, and those are more skyscrapers, but tennis courts and gyms and communal recreation facilities. In other words, those with low body core, scarce. Maybe there's just 4 of them in the townhouse pack, 8 of them, max maybe 10 or 12. Those tend to perform just as well as detached houses, especially in capital cities and especially in high density capital cities. Not so much Brisbane, although there's some pockets, but mostly Melbourne and Sydney. And so if they call them villas, like in Melbourne and Sydney, they call them villas. Inner ring, middle ring villas with still good land to asset ratio, because the field is now 30 years old. Like they were built in the 80s, 70s, 90s in some respects. And so the field is depreciated, so you're predominantly paying for the land component, which a townhouse adds as opposed to a unit. Those can perform just as well as detached houses. So I'm not saying for anyone who's watching to go and buy in like Western Melbourne or like Werribee and buy a townhouse there, or like in Schofields or like Northwest Sydney. Don't buy a townhouse there. But in the more, you could say, blue chip, although I don't really know what that term means, blue chip, because it doesn't grow any more than any other chip. But blue chip suburbs or in the middle ring suburbs, those are where the townhouses perform the best because there's no more land to build them. So it's a great question and kind of a nuanced answer. I was going to go here, though.
Hi, I'm Stacy here. Thank you for your course. I think like many people here, I found it when I got burned by a buyer's agent. So that's was a so I think that's your best, I guess, way of selling. The first, so thank you to that. I want to say to everyone that, you know, a lot of people would say that things are impossible, and being in a community that people show that it really isn't. I actually bought 2 houses in a year and a half, and everyone told me, you know, like, I know what you're doing during a pandemic. This is the crazy of my economy. There's a thing no one's supporting. So I think that's a really good, I guess, thing to share, that it is possible and it's not as hard as many people think. It's just mindset thing. But in saying that, like, the struggle for me has been finding a team, find tips to find that team and build that team that you can rely on and like put your life. Outdoors, it's been really tricky. I think there's really good operators out there, but they're really hard to find and they're really high demand. So you have 8 tips on how to build your team and how to find your.
That's right. So the question was how to build a really good team. Like I said before, in property investing, you need a property manager in the location you're buying, you need a mortgage broker, you need a conveyancer, you need a quantity surveyor, and you need a building and pest inspector. I think that's all of them, like in the same song. So how do you find these people? Of course, standard answers are go on Google, go on Facebook groups, get referrals from friends. You know, everyone will be trying to say those, to be honest. But I like to follow like 3C principle, which I learned from someone. Competence, care, and character. All right? So you want to find someone who's competent. Right? They actually know what they're talking about. And generally, it's those people. Like I think, Tao, you said it before. Someone who is already at a level in investing that you want to be. So they're coming from a place of almost like authority, like experience. So they're competent. And, you know, in this day and age, it's so easy to test competence because there's so much content out there. And so you can really follow them for a while and see if it's smoke and mirrors, compare and contrast. I really feel with any property investing, even if you're considering my course, I feel you should follow multiple people, diverge your content consumption, and then when you actually realize who's who in the zoo, you become educated for free, then converge and find the person that you relate with or you vibe with. I feel that's a really good thing. So competence is very important. And then character. You can have someone who's like super, you know, awesome, expert, but like, you know, that their character, they may not have a good level of service, they may not return calls, they may not treat you politely, they may not, you know, have the same values as you. So I feel, even though this is a bit of a woo-woo, like fluffy, soft thing, character is very, very important. Because you're a property investor, not for 2 years. You know, this is not a quick, you know, get-rich-quick thing. Property takes time. All right, you can exit your workforce to 9 to 5, but it ain't happening in 10 years. Let me tell you that right now. Unless you visit like Tao and like, you know, just like do a pseudo one or something like that. But for most people, like, let it just be honest. All those ads that say, you know, exit your 9 to 5 to 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, like it ain't that. It's like that's the harsh reality, and I feel someone needs to say it. So you need someone with character who's going to be on that boat, on that journey with you for the long term. Character can't be sustained if it's fake over the long term. And then the third C is care. Do they care about you? They may be a terrific person, they may be super competent, but do they actually care? Like, or they're so busy that they can't give you that attention. So the 3 C's are very important for me. And I think, you know, in terms of accountants, I'm onto my like, is that a fourth accountant that we're on to, or fifth accountant, or third? So it's like, you go through people, and then when you find someone, you stick with them. So I know it wasn't like super specific advice, but as principles, I think they're very deep.
Thank you. And this question up, I could get some.
Thank you so much, PK, for this opportunity of making you light first of all. And yeah, with your course, I've got a bit of gist of what exactly I'm doing. As a first-time investor, the basic rule that we have all learned is like, don't want to enter into the mistakes that you are these days now sharing of the mistake that you made while you started your journey. But that kind and this time is completely changed. The time when we were looking at investing, like started somewhere in past July, and till now I couldn't source any property. I was fighting hard. I was looking in for it. Everybody's investing. Started reading all the books and everything, but couldn't find anything. But in the current scenario, also I'm like struggling with finding the right property. The first-time investor, what exactly should be our strategy in? And do we start with the hot market? Do we start with the cooler stuff that we looking for? And just to add on, are we seeing our master and teacher on Netflix too?
Thank you very much for the question. I would answer that second question, but the first question, because if you're using data, things like days on market I went through before, stock on market, which is a supply side metric, and I can tell you about these in more detail in the future perhaps. There's about 35 metrics where we could very easily, I don't think it's rocket science, you could easily identify what is a hot market, i.e. demand is so much more than supply, skewed towards demand, or what's a cooler market. Demand is a little bit higher than supply, but like the Melbourne suburbs that I was talking about. And hot tip, I don't think I've mentioned this before, like Bendigo, it had a huge run, it had a correction. It might just become this right buying window for Bendigo as well. Even places like perhaps around Tamworth and regional New South Wales, places like Maitlands near Newcastle in New South Wales, all of these other areas are starting to show potential. Now, once again, please don't go off and buy there just because I made this soundbite. You had to do your due diligence and the right suburb and street and property, etc. But my point is that there's always cooler markets where if you're like, all right, I know that if I buy in, what's the Bunbury suburb that's super hot right now? Huh? Carey Park? Eastern or Carey? I know if I buy in Carey Park in WA and Bunbury, just south of Perth, I'll make $50,000 equity in the next 3 months. I know that, right? It's just like almost a guarantee. But it's so bloody hard to buy there because there's like 1 million people trying to buy there, right? So you can make a conscious decision to pivot and say, I might consider Maitlands because the more months I'm sitting on the sidelines, there's higher and higher opportunity cost of not taking action. So even though I won't make 50K in 3 months in Beresfield or somewhere around Maitlands, in the next 2 years it's going to become hot likely, and then I will get that acceleration. But in the short term, at least I'm in the market and making some gains. Something is better than nothing. So I think, of course we're talking money, and with money, there's a sense of greed, and we're all humans and it's human nature. But if we can curtail that greed and be a bit sensible and at least get in the market, having a property is better than not having a property, provided it's no allocation. Is that looked at all such as? There's another one here?
Yeah. Love the vision, mate. It's I often hear up in the DM, so it's Justin Gray, and I always appreciate your advice over the time. Hey, look, I'm a family man. I own a couple of daughters. I had my principal place of residence here on the Gold Coast. Got a bit of equity in the home. I am pretty new to this. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. I'm just trying to figure out. I think our borrowing capacity is probably 400K to 500K, pretty entry-level amounts. Like we have not a lot of money to deal with, but I know this is the next move. I know I need to start making moves in my theory to invest. I'm just trying to work out, if you were me, minimal borrowing capacity, I didn't even know if that's possible to work with. I know you're not a fan of units and things like that, but if you were just kind of entry-level amount, I watched your video the other day on townhouses, so it's kind of like, oh, maybe that's a good boo. The borrowing capacity is not there. Where would you, if you were me, you're just trying to enter in and invest, where would you make those entry-level moves? What's kind of the price point that you can enter into? There must be a certain point now where under a certain amount you can't actually take on an investment. Where is that?
Thank you. It's an excellent question. A couple of things come to mind. So I think one thing that I just want to warn everyone is sometimes when we have limited borrowing capacity or budget, we have a tendency to say, all right, detached houses are beyond my range. I need to settle for units. Something is better than nothing. I literally just said that like 2 minutes ago, right? But something is not always better than nothing if you buy the wrong thing, right? So units, I just spoke before about units. Even if you have under 400K, under 500K, you can still buy quality assets. You know, just because it's an expensive asset doesn't mean it grows more than a cheaper asset. There's no correlation or capital growth versus price point. It doesn't exist. So that gives us some hope. And so this is the whole point that Andrew was making before around becoming comfortable buying remotely interstate or in another location. So for example, under 400K, under 450K, there's regional Queensland. I just went through those areas before in the session. I mean, those are screaming out for folks like you, like, man, that's all right. This
It's still very viable, very marginal, very viable.
Exactly. And so if I was in your shoes, that is exactly what I would be doing. And I think the other thing to say is borrowing capacity oscillates. Right now, borrowing capacity might be low, but in the future, your incomes might rise, rates may go down, APRA may change its regulations for banks. And, where's that coming? Okay, here you go. APRA might change its regulation for banks and therefore loosen up the lending criteria for APRA-regulated banks. Therefore, everyone's borrowing capacity goes up. Things happen. And so I think sometimes we get into, not you per se, we get into this like notion of like, oh, I've already got like 2 properties and house tower getting like 9, I can only get 2 and this property investing doesn't work. But you have to be patient. I never got 4 properties in 2 months or 2 days or some ridiculous things like some of these people are getting, right? I was more patient. So I think there's something to be said about that. And then, of course, working with a really good mortgage broker to preserve that borrowing capacity. The trust strategy, which I talk about on YouTube, it's not for everyone. I didn't do it myself. It's not my vibe. Like, it's too high risk for me. I'm not that sort of guy. But for you, it may be. And therefore, even though if you got 400K, that 400K could get you 5 or 6 400K properties. Now, of course, you need to work with a good mortgage broker. Could be a house of cards with a trust strategy, right? There's downsides, but that's where you have to educate yourself and make the right moves in terms of your risk appetite. But don't sit on the sidelines thinking that I can't buy because you can't. 100%. All right, maybe one or two questions over here. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So my question was, after you've bought your first investment property, when do you know you need to reevaluate your property so you borrow more out of it? Or how frequently you should be going to valuations so you borrow against it?
So the question was, once you bought your property, how quickly can you refinance and take the equity or the capital growth that is achieved and use that for a subsequent deposit? So the answer is that most banks will allow you to do that 3 months after you settle the property, or worst case scenario, 6 months after you settle the property. But like an example, like I was saying before about Bunbury, and of course I don't want to just cherry pick examples. This isn't normal for properties to go up $50,000 after 3 months. Like I also want people to understand that that's not a normal thing. But let's say it does go up $50,000 in 3 months. Even the month after you settle, you can go to a different bank and refinance with them, right? So you can, if you're super aggressive, super hungry, very Tao-esque, and you want to be like super aggressive in your property strategy, then you could definitely do that. Of course, it comes with headaches of paperwork and stuff. That's part of it all. All right. Last question, guys, and we'll wrap it up. But I don't want anyone to leave because I have something to say as well. So.
Could you just bounce it back down?
Hello. Thanks so much, KK, for taking time. And you didn't have to do this, but you've done it for people.
from whom you don't have any benefit at this point in time, right? Just a question which is related to me, so I'll just ask that question. If you had, say, 550, would you buy in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, or would you buy in Townsville?
Why are you gonna ask something like that, boy? You got a contract you decide tonight, right? I don't like being put on the spot like that because I'll be recorded and then in 5 years' time there'll be like Reddit threads on this. And anyway, please put your hand up if you think he should be buying in Townsville under 550 as opposed to North Melbourne. Put your hand up. All right, and put your hand up if you think he should be buying in North Melbourne for under 550 versus Townsville. All right, we live in a beautiful democratic nation. Yeah, dudes. Yeah, but honestly, like, it's the same principle before. Townsville, you know you're gonna make money short term, and there's only some suburbs left that are still in the buying window. North Melbourne, higher risk, it could be start, stop, start, stop. We could be having this conversation in 2 years' time, and it's like, PK, it's only gone up $10,000, like, what the hell? So you get the vibe, right? All right, guys, we'll wrap it up there, but I just want to say one thing, because I don't think any speech is sort of complete without like a Steve Jobs kind of like quote or still. So I want to introduce Steve Jobs in this. I want to try to make it as motivational as possible. So just kind of imagine like, I don't know, like some nice instrumental music behind this right now. So when Steve Jobs was younger, when he was I think he was like a teenager, early teens or something, he was in America and his dad, he was a nice guy, his dad said to him, Steve, please paint the front picket fence, the front fence in front of our house. And so Steve said, all right, we've got the paint, we got the brush, and he went off and he painted the fence, and his dad came and said, well, have you finished? And he said, yes, I finished. And his dad said, but you only painted the front side of this fence. You've not painted the inside, the one that's facing the house. And Steve said, yeah, because like no one's looking at that. Like everyone else is only seeing our house from the outside. And his dad said, but son, we see that side of the fence. And so when Steve Jobs grew up, and of course he became the CEO of Apple, Macintosh, and he wanted to create that first Macintosh computer. I remember I was 11 in New Zealand at school, and we got this computer. It had like luminous, sort of green, sort of bang, parks. I'm not IT guy, so I don't know how to describe it. And it was very cool, right? But before that was made, he went to his design engineers and he said that I want you to create a piece of art. I want this computer on the outside to be beautiful, like a Picasso. But on the inside, I want it to make me cry. I want it to be so precise, so artistic, so beautiful, such a piece of art that tears flow down my eyes. And the engineers and designers said, but Steve, like, no one looks at the semiconductors, no one looks at the chips, no one looks at the interior of the computer. And Steve said, but you and I do, right? And so the reason I want to share this story is that property investing makes us money. There's no doubt about it. Done well, property investing makes us money. And people in Australia or globally or wherever society can label us whatever they want to label us. But we're not doing it just for that side of the fence. We're not doing it just for the external of the computer. We're not doing it just to make money. We're doing it to actually fashion or paint the inside of the fence. We're doing it to improve the content of our character, because this is something that allows us to grow, like Tao said, and that was such a brilliant speech that she gave. But most importantly, it's what that allows us to achieve. We should, as a birthright, as humans, be able to do what we love with the people we love. And anything, any system, any structure, any politics, anything that removes that ability is not just. And so therefore, I'm a firm believer of painting the inside of the fence, making sure that the the beauty of the semiconductors is visible as we try to aspire to make money. Always keep that why. Why am I doing this? And for most of us, I mean, I personally don't care about a Ferrari, maybe some of you do. For most of us, it's about being able to spend time with my son, with my family, not to go on like first class to like, you know, Hollywood or whatever, but to be able to go every now and then, to be able to buy a house where we can grow a family, to be able to not have financial stress, and to be able to have the liberty to do things with ethics and freedom that I firmly believe, as citizens of the world, have a birthright to. And so as we're born, we don't have that because of societal constructs, but property investing is a vehicle that has allowed me to achieve it, and it can allow anyone here to achieve it in different respects, and I really want you guys to fulfill the possibility of your potential. Honestly, I don't care even this much if you do my course a lot. I just want you to take action. And if that means doing it yourself, please do it. If that means using a buyer's agent, don't do that. That's a stupid idea. But at least do it yourself, all right? And so I just want to lead you with that. I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank you for being part of my Facebook group, for following me on YouTube. I am so grateful to be able to serve you. You guys have changed my life.